I'm here with Angie Colon, Mansfield cross country and track and field athlete. And you just had a fantastic, exciting week this past week, was able to compete in the Olympic trials in the 20K racewalk. Angie, thank you so much for taking the time and joining me here.
Thank you for having me.
So, if we can, let's go kind of back to the beginning of the journey here for you in racewalk, and obviously not one of the disciplines that a lot of people, not enough people, have a lot of attention on. So, what was kind of your first introduction to racewalk, and what got you into it?
Well, there's a dog. My high school is known for Racewalk. Our high school is nicknamed like Racewalk University, but like the high school level. Um, our coaches are very knowledgeable in it, and one of my coaches, his wife, is a two-time Olympian in the Racewalk. So that is kind of how it got brought into our high school. And I racewalked since I was a freshman in high school, and I was not good. It was not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kept pushing and pushing, and then I made nationals my sophomore year of indoor season, and then I kept making nationals from then. And then COVID happened my junior year, and then that's when I realized I still wanted to race walk in college, but I also wanted to be in the NCAA and not an NAIA school. So I found Mansfield, and Michael Roll coached me, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I know you've been able to, while being here, gone to some of the most prestigious meets in the country. You've been able to go to Milrose Games, this Olympic trial. What is kind of the atmosphere? Is it different from the even the big meets like the Milrose Games to now the Olympic trials, a national championship Olympic trials? What is kind of the atmosphere of the two different events, or really kind of the smaller ones you've been able to run at? Milrose Games, which is massive, and then this, which is probably even on another level.
Yeah. Um, it's definitely different than college meets because I go to these bigger meets and I'm like the youngest one there. And it's, yeah, there's not much or not many college athletes there. So it's definitely like all professional athletes and people who I've looked up to that I'm like, wait, they're right there. Um, and the atmosphere is definitely more intense, like compared to college meets, or like college meets are still intense, but there's a different level of intensity that goes into these meets. And I think that has like it forced me to kind of grow up in the sport faster, because I'm watching like a 30-year-old how they warm up, and then I'm 20 and having to watch them. It forced me to grow up and take my sport really seriously so I wouldn't make a fool out of myself. But thankfully the race walk is such a small community, and I know all the competitors. I've raced against them before. So even on the line, like we were all like chit-chatting, and the older women were coming up to me and telling how proud they are that I'm here. But the Olympic trials was definitely very intense. Like you can feel the tension of all the people who wanted to make the Olympics. But yeah, it was still such a cool experience.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to touch on that a bit because it is unique. Like in terms of, yes, you guys are absolutely very competitive against each other, but there's a close knitness. I don't know if that's actually a word, but a close knit group. What was kind of, have you taken some advice or some sort of uh, different kinds of strategy, or what can you take from the competitors, and what kind of things do you guys talk about before or after the race?
um, well, my first like big nationals as a freshman in college, no, a sophomore in college. Um, I was the youngest in like the field by like 7 years, and I had one of the older women come up to me and she says, "This should be your moment." And she says, "Walk instead of run, walk your own race, and you being here is an experience enough." And I was like, yeah, like there was no pressure on me, if that makes sense, because I'm just so young compared to everyone else. And yeah, it's just what we talk about. We talk about literally anything. Like they ask me about school and they're like, "How's school?" And I'm like, "School's good." And I'm like, "I have a paper to write when I get back." Um, just like normal stuff like that. Like they'll ask me like, oh, do you need help with anything? And I'm like, well, I'm a music major. You really can't help me. But um, yeah, they're super sweet. And even during the race, like the first quarter of the race, we were all like chit chatting and we're like, okay, like why is that person cheering like that? Why is this person not cheering? Like normal stuff. And it like reminds us that these people are human and they're just normal people, even though like I looked up to them for years. And but once that gun goes off and it's like intense, then like no talking and you kind of just get the work done. But
Mhm.
yeah.
So the distance for the Olympic trials also a factor here as you go up to the 20K for this. Was this really kind of your first race 20K or what how do you prepare for some of the meets that you were able to do, which was like a 3K or a 5K to have that jump all the way up to a 20K? What was that that kind of practice and that preparation like for you?
Well, for example, Milrose, when I won Milrose back in February, that was only a mile. I'm very comfortable in mile, 3K, 5K, 10K. Like those are my very comfortable distances, just because I've been doing them for so long. But hearing 20K and 35K, like those are rough. I'm not gonna lie, those are pretty rough. But this, including the Olympic trials, I would have raced 3 20Ks in this year, in the past 6 months. And I also raced a 35K. Um, the 35K was no joke. That was definitely no joke. For people who don't know, that's 21.7 miles. And I did that on a track. So that was 87 and a half laps on a track.
Wow.
So it's a lot mental. Like obviously it's very, very physical. Like I was sore for weeks after, but very, very, very mental. And training is intense, like intense. My long walks are 18 to 22 miles, like, and that's just kind of what we have to do. But yeah, the Olympic trials, this, at least this race, everyone, majority of people had a really slow race and has something to do with the course, we think. But it was still a race because this was actually my first road race and um the turns and remembering which street to turn down, that was fun. But yeah, the training was difficult and it was not easy. And I was promised I would make the Olympic trials back in 2021, even before I was recruited. So like the past 3.5 years was just like intense training and yeah, 20K and 35K are no joke. They're definitely no joke.
You know, you talked about the mental aspect, and I think in this sport especially, like it is such an underrated, not talked enough about thing, the mental toll that a lot of long distance races take on you. So let's talk about it because not only with your discipline in race walk that you have to be in technique the entire time. What is the mental challenges? Like, let's talk about what are some of those challenges to know your speed, know the technique, know what you have to do to get back on. How do you kind of compartmentalize all of that during the race?
Well, thankfully my form is like I can never lose that form of race walk. So form is not really like an issue. Like I just don't run. Like that's it. Just don't run. There's dogs barking. But mentally, most, I guess, college kids or most athletes don't race for 2 hours. And that is so hard to stay in race mode for 2 hours. And that's not including like the time before the race. So I'm pretty much in race mode for 3 to 4 to 5 hours. And it's very, very mentally draining. Like if I'm running like a mile, I'm good after. Physically, I'm a little sore, but after these 20Ks or 35Ks, mentally, I am more exhausted than physically, just because I have to stay so mentally in it. And because the second you lose interest in it, that's like 2 miles that goes by. Like it goes by so fast. So yeah, staying mentally in it is the hardest part of the entire race, hands down.
So a couple days after the race, how are you feeling physically and mentally right now?
Exhausted. um, Sore everywhere, like hips down, so sore. Mentally sore, if that makes sense. But this was the longest outdoor season I have ever had. Pretty much going into July was rough. And I ran cross country, so it was pretty much almost a full year of
Mm.
staying in race mode, if you want to call it. But yeah, I take a much needed 1 month completely off, no running, no race walking. So I'm so excited. But I'm just so grateful for this opportunity. And so like my parents came out and my coaches were there, and it was just so cool to represent Mansfield. And yeah, it was just it was such a good experience. And was it the race I wanted? No, but I was the youngest there, and getting that opportunity, knowing that, okay, I can do this. So in 4 years, we could try again, or 8 years, or 16 years, whatever, that this dream of mine was possible and I could do it again.
Yeah, so just the experience as a whole, you just said like maybe not the race you wanted, but for your first Olympic trials here, I know the Mansfield community, we are so proud of you for representing us in such a great way. And what kind of was the biggest takeaway, the biggest kind of wow moment during the race or after the race or just being there? What was that moment from this experience that's going to stand with you?
Well, this has been my dream since I was a senior in high school. So like just getting there was, well, getting here was rough because I had 3 chances. I had 3 shots to do it. And like the first shot, I was like, that's it, my dream's over. The second shot, that was like, I'm done race walking. I'm done. But then that last shot, when I did it back in beginning of June, was the 35K, and qualifying in the 35K. That was a moment, and I just had to be so grateful for like all that hard work finally paid off. And then getting on the line, as soon as the gun went off, I told everybody, as soon as that gun went off, I was just smiling. Like I was so nervous, but I was just smiling to be like, I'm here, I'm competing. And the race was like organized so well, and we raced in a little town called Springfield right outside Eugene, and the people of Springfield were outside like bordering the course, and they were cheering. They had bells and they had confetti and they had everything, and it was such a good experience. For that to be my first trials was amazing. And yeah, it was just the biggest thing I take away is patience, to have patience, because God's time is always right, and it worked out. It ended up working out. And if you told me like back when I tried my first 20K in March, I'd be like, I didn't make the trials, no way. But to have patience literally in the race and while you're leading up to the race, but yeah, patience and have fun, because this is also supposed to be fun. So
Well, wonderful. And the last question I have for you, what can you build using this experience, using this season as a stepping point, as a building point? What do you hope to accomplish here going forward?
well, we're going to my senior year. So yeah, I want to make my senior year a good year. Um, and because this will be my last year with the college eligibility. But we're not done race walking outside of college. We're not done. But yeah, to have fun my senior year, and I have confidence now that I'm holding like titles and I've been to the Olympic trials. Like not many people could say that. And enjoy the moment, to be in the moment. And is the work going to be hard? Yes, like I know that. But also to remember to have fun with it, and go into my senior year with a new confidence, and yeah, to have fun. Confidence and to have fun. There we go. That's what I want to say.
Well, we're looking forward to it, and thank you so very much for taking the time and talking with us. And congratulations to you. That should have been said multiple times here. Congratulations to you, Angie.
Thank you.